You got the record. All right. Are you able to see my screen okay?
Got it. Yeah, you can see it.
All right, perfect. So I'll cover the agenda and then primarily the chat, because really this is Dan's project. He did such an awesome job. I heard about this a few months ago and thought, like, you have to tell everybody about this. This is really crazy cool and always nice to hear really cool stuff done with automation. So if you can join on video, it's nice to see the folks that we're talking to. So first off, we're going to talk about why you would want to do this to begin with, both for yourself and your plants. Dan will get into what plants want, specifically when it comes to moisture, goals and recommendations that you should have if you try to replicate this yourself. The journey to the prototype that he ended up with, because there were a number of different things that he tried. You'll see a demo of what he built live in action, but we'll go through the recording today, and then you'll actually get to see the RPA that he set up while he walks you through that. Q&A doesn't have to wait until the end. We can take that totally throughout the whole conversation, so feel free to let me know either through a message or your through some type of emoji that you'd like to ask something. There you go, Dan. It's all you.
Thanks, Tracy. First off, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you're all having an awesome day. Totally appreciate you joining me. After work, can be spending time doing literally anything, but you're spending time here with us. So that's I spent a lot of time making this. This means a lot to me. So again, like, thank you for being here. So this year, and sort of last year too, I guess before even last year, for the longest time, I've loved plants. I love food. There's nothing better than eating some really delicious food, and the best way to do that is with amazing produce. So like really, really fresh food. The best way to do that is to grow it yourself. So if you're trying to grow food yourself, it can be a lot of work. You can grow one plant and life can be kind of easy, but if you're growing like, even I guess one plant can be hard, but like if you're growing like 5, 6, or 10 plants for an entire growing season, which could be, this year it was like 5 months of growing. So if you want good food now, all of a sudden you have to take care of these things for like 5 months. Not every day, but if it's really hot, every day. So this is something that, when it worked well, I got great food, but when it wasn't working well, it was sort of a waste of time. It was a waste of an investment. I was putting all this money into having this garden, but if I couldn't take care of it, then no matter how much I was spending on it, it was, going to result with no food. So I wanted to sort of ensure or guarantee that I would be getting some food. And the way to do that was to automate the irrigation, which is not new. Lots of farms do it. Personally, at home, it's not the easiest thing. It can be kind of expensive. Also, there's a lot of things you might have to buy into. So I guess like the main reasons I want to irrigate this garden is because I want to get good food and I want to spend less time worrying about watering. It's like something that could be automated, so it should be automated. There's plenty of things that are harder to automate, like maybe pruning the plant or moving the branches around, trying to get it in the perfect area so it has the most sunlight. Any sort of strategic planning, that's the time that's what I'm doing with my time, instead of like filling a bucket up with water, heading over to a plant, looking at it, trying to see if it's dry and then dumping water on it. One more reason that we want to like automate watering plants like as fully as possible is that day 1 the plant might not want so much water. Day 2 it might need a lot. Day 3 it might not need any. And so if we can monitor that soil, we can find out exactly when the plant is thirsty and water it only then. A lot of irrigation systems will follow a schedule. Every day at 8 a.m., water the plant, and then at 12, water the plant. But what if the plant's not thirsty? What if it has enough water? Now it's getting overwatered, and it's not going to be as amazing as it could be. So I guess just to summarize, like, the reason that we are automating this irrigation as much as possible is so that we're only using as much water as we need. The plant is getting, all the water it needs at the perfect time. If we don't water it at the perfect time, then it's a negative outcome. Enough negative outcomes, you don't get the best food you could. But if everything's perfect, then you're going to spend your time just like being happy that everything's looking good. You will notice. So the plants will be hardier, they'll be healthier, you'll get more food, it'll taste better. Let's move on to the next slide. So plants want a lot of water, but only sometimes when they're dry. It's super easy to like water the plant every day. Again, if it doesn't actually need water, then you're going to overwater your plant. And so you've spent this time caring for your plant, and now things are going wrong. And so that makes gardening less fun. And again, you're putting all this time and money into this. So we want the best outcomes possible. We want happy, healthy plants. We want delicious food. Yeah, plants want water. The perfect time. So there's a little bit of debate over this, but it's like generally agreed that for most like fruiting plants, you don't want to water them all the time. You want to wait for the soil to dry out, because when you do that, you're depriving the plants of water. And when that happens, the roots start to search and they start to grow, and they're going around, they're looking for water. And that's when you soak your plant. Then it gets all the water, it's all happy, it drinks it all up. And then you wait again until that, not like a drought, but you want to cycle through periods of, the soil being really dry and then being really wet. And when you do that, the plant will grow accordingly. And that means like there's going to be more roots as a result. So we're maximizing that aspect of it. If there's more roots, they can absorb more nutrients. It can support longer periods of drought. Not that it's going to happen because we're automating it. But in case you're wondering, like, when's the perfect time to water the plant? It's not like every day. It's just whenever the plant is thirsty, and then you give it a whole lot of water. And so that is what we built that into the automation logic. We're monitoring the soil moisture, and when it gets too low, that's when we water it, and we just repeat that. So it's not too crazy. It's pretty easy to catch along. When we go over the demo, you'll get to see more of it. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so we'll talk about like some of the things that I did to get to the final product. I guess it's still a prototype, but initially I just had like a simple system. Wasn't using really much. I wasn't using like my server or anything. It was just something I attached to my hose outside, and it would water. It would turn on the plug like for 1 minute every hour, and I got a lot of mosquitoes because it was like a swamp basically. So I was getting way too much water. It wasn't taking into account, the plants need a lot of water today. They don't need a lot of water tomorrow. And yeah, that wasn't fun. There's something that I still use today called it's like an aquameter, but it basically is a stick that you put in the soil, and it turns blue when the soil is wet. When it's dry, it turns white. And that's really useful for smaller plants that I haven't automated. I can visually look at all my plants, and if the stick is blue, then good. If it's not blue, then I water it. So it's a mechanism for, again, knowing like, when's the time to water, but not fully automated. It's good in a jam, but not if you're trying to like step out for like a couple weeks, the plants are not going to get watered. They have this thing called a watering halo, which is, I don't think I could show it, but it's in the plant shopping list. And it basically distributes your water. It makes it so it's sort of like raining. So like if you're pouring like a bucket of water on your plant, the surface area, it's pretty small. It's really quick and easy to like flood the area. The water could go out the sides. Here we go. This is the watering halo. It basically, you plug in a tube, the water goes through, and then it sort of gently rains down on the plant, only on the soil too. So that spreads it out, larger surface area. It's more parts of the soil, so you get a full watering. There are lots of different smart plugs. The one that I wanted to use, I was trying to develop this in a way where I didn't have to like get under the hood and make some crazy programming moves. I wanted something that had a front end app so I could just, quickly work with the UI. So that I could say, turn this plug on and then turn this plug off. Simple as that. No API calls. Everything's handled by the application. So I settled on the Casa smart plug made by TP-Link. They have a lot of different models. You can buy one plug, you can buy a strip with 6 plugs. That was my favorite. Saved a lot of money that way. They have outdoor plugs that are like IP something compatible, so you feel a little better. If you're automating something outside, you want to try and minimize any sort of risk. So I felt like they had a lot of range, a lot of coverage for different options. So that's why I went with them. The tubing is important. I guess it depends on the diameter. So if it's a really small tube, it's going to take a while to water the plant. So based on what you're watering, you might need a small one. But if it's a thirsty plant, you'll need a larger one. Tubing wasn't too crazy. And another thing is I have this indoors and outdoors. So like inside, like my thing is that I have a bucket of water, and when that bucket is low, I fill it up. That happens like once a week. All the plants, when they get thirsty, the water comes out of that bucket at the perfect time. So in terms of like manual labor for me, indoors, once a week, I fill up this bucket, sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on how the plants are doing. Because again, like it's totally dynamic whenever the plants get watered. Outdoor setup, I actually have a perpetual grow. There's something called a float switch that will look at your bucket, and if the water is too low, it turns on the hose, fills it up every time. And so I don't have a great demo for that outdoors. I'd love to do something during the summer to show you, especially after do some upgrades, what this can do. But it basically means like I used to have to spend an hour a day going outside in the summer, which now I can do it for fun. But I used to have to do like an hour of like manual labor, filling up a bucket with water, heading over different plants, and then like pouring water on them. It's like bad for my back. Now I spend that time like sitting down and like enjoying the plants instead of like having to labor over them. All right, we can move on to the next one. Time for the fun part. So up here we have 2 lists. They're Amazon shopping lists, and they'll show you everything that you need if you want to replicate this hardware. It can be, so this is what I've used, and if you do want to go with this, let me know, and I'd be happy to help you any step of the way. So like this is the indoor list. The outdoor list is mostly the same with the exception of a float switch, which helps to make sure your bucket's always filled with water. So we got that Casa smart plug, we've got a water pump. That's all good. So some mild modifications. The Casa smart plug has been replaced with an outdoor smart plug. Let's scroll down a little bit. So we've got the tubing, we've got the watering halo. There's this device called the EcoWit. This is a combo. It comes with a moisture sensor, and there's a small device next to it, and that connects to as many sensors as you have, and it pushes the data up to the cloud. So later on, we'll see a demo where we're pulling we're pulling values down from the site. So what's happening is like that green object is sending information to this like blue object, and that's sending it to the cloud, and then the robot is going to pull that data down. The reason this is important is because like this is a like an outdoor grade moisture sensor. It runs on 1 AA battery, and I've had it in since the beginning of the summer, and I've only used like 15% of the battery. So like this device is very, very efficient. It's very reliable. It sends data every minute, for instance, like since July. So it is it's my favorite thing for like automating this. Wouldn't be able to do without it. And on the bottom, we've got that float switch, and there's some cool attachments to hook it up to your hose. And that's really it. So
All
let's
right.
move on to,
Give you the screen share, Dan.
yes, please.
While
We're
Dan's
gonna
setting
move on
that
to-
up, anyone have a question thus far?
All right, so we're gonna start this up. Can everyone see this?
You can.
Yep.
Great. So we've got I don't think the audio is gonna play, so I'm gonna narrate it. But this is a bird of paradise plant. Just got it. Got that watering halo. You can see that green soil moisture sensor. So all of that's hooked up. We've got our water pump. This is a smart plug. That's going to the water pump, and that connects to the plant. The name of the game is that when the soil is dry, you're going to turn that plug on for like 5 seconds, because we don't want to flood the plant either. We want to give it time for the water to settle in. And every 30 minutes, we're going to check. If it's still too dry, we're going to give it another 5-second spritz, and we'll keep doing that to get to our target value.
Dan, can I ask a question?
Sure, go for it.
The moisture sensor, I heard that most of these like wear out pretty quick. Did you find a good one that will last for some? Because some of the moisture sensors, they just corrode and die pretty quick within a few weeks. I was wondering if yeah, right.
So this one, you're totally right. There's so many soil moisture sensors on the market, and they all like promise some things. This is the one that I thought was the most reliable. Part of it is, so like I've been using it since the summer. They've been outdoors for like months, including like it's December. I still have one outside, and it's still working like day one. It's the most reliable soil sensor I've ever used. I haven't like used a bunch, but I've used a couple. And this one, like literally 0 failure rate. Even like the second I put the battery in, it immediately connected to the receiver. Everything about it was super easy. I totally recommend that. And so this site that we're seeing here on my tablet, this site, and we'll see a larger version in demo number 2. This is included with that device. So it pushes the data to the cloud, and then it's all available here. The robot basically logs in like any other, like you or I would, and it looks at these numbers and it pulls them down and adds it to data service. So that was I'm pointing to the bird of paradise plant. That was at 39. I had the moisture, I wanted it to get to 40%. So I'm still in that range where it's in watering mode. So it's doing a little bit more math. It's pulling down some other values too. And it's uploading the data service. So that's done. Now it's starting up a dispatcher, and the dispatcher, and we'll see this later too, it's going to data service, and it's looking at every row and saying, has watering mode been enabled? And if it has, then it's going to move on to the next thing, which is our smart plug. So this is like, I found this app on the Windows Store, which was tricky. So like there's lots of apps that have stuff on like available on iPhone and Android, but like not the easiest thing to automate. And you totally can automate it, but it's a matter of how much time you want to invest. Do you really want to reinvent the wheel, or do you want to find some products that are reliable? They work really well together. And yeah, reliability is key. So this app basically lets me control my Casa smart plugs, and it's available on Windows, and it works well. And that was my criteria. That was the thing that got me over the hill to like, all right, I'm definitely going to use this. Next week, we're going to see some other smart plugs that are actually, they have web servers built into them. So they're even more reliable than this, but this is pretty good for what we're doing. And so we're going to turn on indoor pump 3 for a few seconds. Now the plant is being watered. So this is going to be 5 seconds. It's going to turn off. In 30 minutes, we'll check again. That's probably going to be okay because it was at 39 and we wanted to get to 40. But that is basically it. So this happens, as many times as it needs to. If you're out for the week at a conference, if you're on vacation, you could ask someone to water all your plants for you, or you could just have this thing buttoned up forever. Especially like if you have an outdoor garden and you just never want to worry about it again. Strongly recommended. So that is demo number 1. Before I move on to the next one, are there any questions that we have?
We have a question in the chat. What is the soil you use? Dixon asked, and Montana asked if the device in PlantBot list has UiPath interface bundled already, or we need another UiPath to control the device.
So the soil, it's cocoa. It's like cocoa husks. Basically, there are coconuts, and they pull the husk off, and it doesn't have any nutrients. It drains really, really fast. It's a pretty it's a safe medium for whatever you're growing in. You just have to add the water and the nutrients based on what the plant needs. Yeah, cocoa is like one of my favorite things to grow, and it's very, very helpful. Well, could you let me see question 2 again?
The device in PlantBot list has UiPath interface bundled already, or we need another UiPath to control the device.
So all the devices, so the moisture sensor, you don't need UiPath to control. We do when we're pulling down the data. We're controlling that smart plug, and we're doing that through the smart plug app, and that's where we're using UiPath. I'm not sure if that.
So UiPath doesn't come with any of the devices specifically. It's separate, but it lets you do more with the devices. What you would normally do on the web or information you'd look up, but it doesn't come with any.
Yeah. You're totally right, and that's the best part. Like UiPath isn't bundled with anything.
Yes.
Like none of these products are bundled or designed to work with each other. We're just finding 2 products that work well. That like we really wish they worked well, and now they do. Sort of like hacked it together.
Thank you very much. Okay, you can use the chat. All of you can use, and you can select everyone in the meeting if you want to hit it. But I will also help you, and if you are sending me direct messages, I will ask our speakers as well. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to quickly go through the meat and potatoes, the actual automation behind this. It's pretty fun. I haven't used data service before this, and there's not a lot of data in here, but I basically just needed a place to store the data that wasn't like a spreadsheet. Didn't want to go out and like create my own database and like have to maintain it and have to become a security expert. I just wanted to store these 5 rows, 5 plants somewhere nice and somewhere very close to the orchestrator. And so that's where like data service is amazing. You can spin something up really quick. I don't have too many columns. So let's start. We have sensor channel. What does that mean? That is the name of the sensor. So if I head over to this site, this is included with the that moisture sensor, which was like, I was very happy about that because now I don't have to reinvent the wheel again. It's like I could like spend time and learn how to build this, or I could work on 2 automations, which is like key for me. If there's some stuff that already exists and it works well, I'm totally going to leverage it. And that's like what UiPath is amazing at doing. And so you can see like up here, bird of paradise. Let me go to the top again. You can see like indoor 1, indoor 2, bird of paradise. That lines up with the sensor channel. So when I start the bot, it's going to look at each of these and try and find it in here. And then I'm just going to update it. So I'm going to like move some data around so we can get the plant to actually do some watering. But first, before I do that, I'm going to play around a little more. So like this is just to show that it works. It'll update later. So these values are going to be what gets pulled from here. Every time it runs, it's going to update that and throw it in here. This is something that's specific per plant. It's a range that we set, for this plant. Start watering when the moisture is 24. Keep watering it till it gets to 35. Every plant could be different, or like maybe it's a different zone. So like here's where you're growing all your tomatoes. Here's like your cabbage patch, and like your strawberries are over there. So they'll all have different needs, and this is dynamic enough to allow you to set that.
And Dan, how did you figure out what the needs were for each individual plant?
Trial. Well, part of it is like you can Google it, and you might find some answers. Another thing you could do is trial and error. So if your plants are happier after you have the like opportunity to experiment here, because maybe the right answer, maybe it's not 25, maybe it's 22 and a half. I can always dial that in. It's sort of like you're making espresso. You're like, how many beans do I throw in here? So there's like general ranges. 25 is what I found, or 20 is good for like how dry can the soil get. Otherwise it's getting pretty dusty. It's like sand. And then based on like how the soil that you have, like some of it can hold a lot of moisture too. So like part of it is like how much does your plant tolerate and how much can the soil hold? And if it's following like the general rule of like let it dry out and then soak it, then it's really a matter of like finding out like when is it too dry, and then like taking a note of that when it's too wet. So there's it depends. But the cool thing is that go ahead.
What do you do to prevent moisture loss? Because I know in your part of the country, it gets pretty hot, right? And moisture is the humidity readings are different based on where you live. But once it's watered, what do you do to stop the soil from frequently drying? Because the idea is not to turn the pump on too many times, right? I mean, is there something? Yeah.
So technically you could cover there's nothing you could really do to automate that, but you could cover the soil with like straw or wood chips to keep it from evaporating. I'm in the Northeast, so I don't have the water issue. And one thing with like, if you're trying to be as efficient as possible, you could do hydroponics, or that's probably going to be the way to use the least water. But when we are growing here this way, like you want it to dry out as fast as possible. The faster it dries out, the faster the roots start searching. So this isn't going to be like the number one most efficient way this isn't going to be the most efficient way to use water, but it's very close in a sense that you'll never over water the plant.
Right.
You won't give the plant water when it doesn't need it. So you're still saving in that aspect of it. So another thing, like you have all these plants and you don't want to accidentally have a pump turn on if a plant isn't there to receive the water. So I have like a fail safe here. If this is set to yes, then I can water the plant. But if the bot sees this set to no, it'll update the value, but it will not water the plant. So you don't, it's just a fail safe. Sometimes you have the plant and then sometimes it's not there anymore, but the soil moisture sensor is still there, then it's still going to keep pulling the data in. Watering mode is set by the bot. So if it sees something that's under that range, basically, if this is set to yes, then the plant is going to get watered the next time the bot runs. Nothing crazy there. If it's no, don't water it. If it's yes, water it. If this is set to no, then this will never be set to yes. If it's set to yes, then we'll compare the moisture with the min and the max, decide if you want to water it. So I'm going to start up the bot that checks the moisture, and it's going to update data services. So right now this is at 32. Data services says 30. So after I run the bot, this will read up as 32. Let's refresh to make sure. And before I get into this, just to show you the general like flow of what's going to happen, we're going to go back to that site we were just at. We're going to look at data service and find each of these plants. Then we're going to search for each sensor, for each row. We are going to check for that item. If it's in there, then we'll pull the data. Might be better if I put this on debug. Yeah, we can get it started. So we're pulling in from.
And what made you choose data service?
It was just like, it felt like a natural choice. Like I didn't want to have it saved locally on a server in Excel somewhere. I didn't want to like spin up like a storage bucket with another service. It was so convenient. That is definitely why I decided to use it. It was the path of least resistance. I wanted to get this thing built. I wanted it to work reliably. And you know, if the data can be stored in the orchestrator, that just makes sense. Like, why would I want to? I could put it somewhere else, but now there's more risk. Maybe I can't get to it. Maybe I lose access. Maybe there's connectivity between the storage bucket and the orchestrator.
You don't have to worry about hung Excel files in the background or spinning up a database.
No corrupt Excel files either. Huge. So the logs will show us some stuff we already know. Bird of Paradise is 32. If we refresh, this will read up as 32. So right now, the next thing that's going to happen is a very small automation called the watering bot dispatcher. It's a very small bot. All it does is it pulls down that data again from right over here. And it just looks here, watering mode. If it's set to yes, water the plant. If not, don't water the plant.
Then do you get any notifications if the watering system is inaccessible or you're not able to manipulate the plug to turn on the pump?
Yeah, so I have like system exceptions, just like standard things that are included with
Cool, yeah.
UiPath. Another thing is I have some redundancy. So this website has the option to send me like text and email alerts. I think mostly I rely on like the emails, so I'm not 100% text, but I can have this independently check. You know, if this gets below 25, send me an email. So maybe like something happens with my bot, maybe my server is shut down for some reason. This service will still tell me like, hey, your plants are too dry. And then I'll start wondering, you know, what's going on here? And then I could start like troubleshooting and logging into the server, seeing if I could turn it on. It's a great failsafe. So step one, if something goes wrong with the robot, it should tell me. But if something like catastrophic happens, I've got that, you know, ace in the hole. This site will tell me too. So I sort of want to manipulate this so we only get one thing watered right now. So indoor 2, I just want to mess with the bird of paradise right now. I guess there's no harm. I'm just going to, gonna set this to no because I only want to water. Typically, it would just water indoor pump 4, indoor pump 2. Gonna set this to no. And have this watering bot dispatcher run, and it should turn on the plug for indoor 2. Okay. So this would start the job, but we wouldn't be able to see it. So that's why I'm going to cancel out of this one and go into this other one. Here's the watering bot dispatcher. Again, we're just going to pull down these values. We're only looking at watering mode. If it's set to yes, we'll water the plant. But I'll turn that to no. Great. So it should just water indoor number 2. There you can see indoor number 2. Watering mode was set to yes, because 24 is less than 25. So we're going to water it until it gets to 35. Then watering mode will be set to no. And tomorrow we will do it all again. I'm going to close this one out. And we'll open up the watering bot app. Or the watering bot automation. And since we're not going through the full process, I'm setting some default values for the argument. Typically this would go in, we saw those locals before where it said indoor 2. And so we're going to open up this app. I'm going to click over here just so you can see it. Click here. I'm just going to click this. It's going to click on for 5 seconds. I'm just going to turn it off. Close this out. But nothing crazy here. I don't think like everything so far, like if you're wondering like where's the hard part, like it's just we're breaking it down, we're pulling data, we're checking against the range, and then we're turning on a plug. And that's it. So I will start this up. Application will open, live demo, guesswork. Yes, all right, I turned it on for 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Please turn off. Yes, amazing. And that is it. That is it. And in 30 minutes, we're going to start the process again. We're going to go to the site and say, hey, you know, what's the moisture at? Is it still 24 or is it any higher? Indoor 2 is right here. We can come back to it in a minute or two, but this number should go up. And that's it. Again, like if we have any questions, let me know. Let me add them. Yeah, that's what I've got to show today.
How do you read the other the higher value of moisture? Like when you said you start at 25 and then you stop when the moisture level is at 35. Do you how do you read that and get back to stop the pump?
So it's going to check that site every 30 minutes. So like the soil sensor is going to detect water and then it's going to go up because now water's been added to it. Is that what you're asking, or?
No, in the data service, you have those two columns, right? You start at the moisture value, if the moisture value dips below 25 or something, and then water up until max moisture level is 35, for example, right? Or how does the pump know when exactly to turn off? Is it time based, or is it based on the? Okay, gotcha.
This is
all right.
5 seconds, nothing crazy. Yeah, we could make it dynamic, but I
right. Okay, understood. I was wondering how we could make that happen, because that's challenging, right? I mean, going back and reading the values at real time and then turning off the plug. Yeah, I had to think about that too.
You're absolutely right.
And Dan, you're planning to make the source code available publicly on GitHub, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll put that out there and a link so it can be attached to the event. And then we'll be doing part 2 next week. So if any of you guys want to use the same concept, you could reuse what Dan's built.
You will have it once the event ends on the wrap up. And also, as Tracy mentioned, we are waiting for you on the next session next week. I think it's on December 3rd. It's I already shared in the chat, but I will share once again the link. So for you to go and register. It will be easier in the chat.
Next week will be on the right nutrients, how to figure out
Yes.
the right feed for your plant.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. That's designed if you have like a larger sort of setup, or if you're growing in cocoa where there's no nutrition at all, you can, there's lots of, basically, if you add nutrients, your plants will be happier and healthier. But adding the right amount at the right time is tricky. You're measuring it like milliliters of the solution. So, a shot glass has 30 to 50 milliliters. So divide that into 30 or 50. And then if you add, 4 milliliters instead of 2 milliliters, your plant might get too much. And if you don't add enough, the plant might not get enough. So it's something that if you fine tune it, it will make your life a lot less stressful. You'll be at the point where all you do is, just add water, and all the other plant science gets taken care of for you. So I'm super excited to show that off too. Yeah, that's all I have for today.
I hope all of you have received the link, so you just need to go and register there. So for us to catch up next week.
I've registered for the next week. I actually registered for the next week first and realized that the first part is on today, and registered about 2 minutes after the event, before the event started. It's just, I just got a bit of a confusion there, but yeah.
We are happy to have you today with us. So thank you.
It's cool, man. It's cool, Dan.
Thanks, Andy. Happy to show it off, and it's
Yes.
There's a lot of fun making. Saves me time every day.
Right.
I could go away for a long weekend, come back, and my plants are still doing great. Yeah, it just makes my life that much easier. No time for there's not enough time in the day, so any way I could sort of reclaim my time, I'm all for doing it too. Also, if anyone has any ideas for a cool automation, they need help with it, let me know. I'm always happy to offer advice and tips, even collaborate. Let me have it. Always happy to help out.
Yeah, but thanks for confirming that moisture sensor. I'm looking at it right now. The one with the green in a body. That's the one, right? I'm looking at the WH51.
51. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, I looked at it a few months ago. In fact, almost a year ago, but I was not very sure about how long it would last. Now that you have tried and tested it, I think it's I have a bit more confidence that if I want to put something into place, then I could use this sensor.
So yeah, one AA battery. I haven't had to replace it yet. I don't think I will until next year. So
Right.
works in the rain. And it's very reliable. Pushes the data every minute, on the minute.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you once again, Dan and Tracy.
Oh.
It was awesome. I learned something new today. It was
Always
awesome,
happy to
the
share.
session, and can't wait to join together with all here, and maybe we'll have also new participants to our next session next week. Thank you for joining.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.